my favorite, personally, is where Rudy Giuliani says that Palestinians are taught to kill Americans as toddlers, two-year-old Palestinians. And it's just like, you see that flag with all the stars and the stripes on it? Bad flag. Like, what are we doing here, Rudy? This is insane.
1+1 is kill the unbeliever. Kill them.
Yeah.
Kill. Hello, everybody. This show is called A Very Special Relationship, or AVSR for short, and looks at British and American politics, not so much through a prism, but more through gaps in our fingers. My name's Matt Johnson. I host a show called The Interesting Times, but let's be honest, what you're all here for, well, I know I am, is Andrea Bridges-Smith from the Phoenix News Network, who is going to be talking about US politics. So, hi, Andrea. What news from America? Should I start stocking up on canned food, toilet roll, and hunkering down in my fallout shelter?
Yes, as of today, we have less than a week till our election day. Who knows how many days we have until we actually know the results? Those are two different days. Probably not like that in Britain, right?
No,
No.
not at all.
No, and you guys are really missing out because there is just this glorious sense of anticipation that just really squeezes into your chest. If you're looking for something to do with all that kind of panicky energy, this would be a great time to redecorate that bunker that you were talking about, that fallout shelter. You're going to be spending a lot of time in there, so, make it cozy, make it nice.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll have a look at that and see if I can't add an extension or something. Still, I've got my Red Bull DVDs. I'm sure I'll be fine. Andrea, I wonder if I might ask you. Um, we know that last time Trump ignored the results. Basically, he
Uh-huh.
said the election was stolen.
Right.
Have you said as well that Kamala Harris has sort of like basically got lawyers all over the place ready to jump on this if he tries to pull the same sort of thing again?
Right.
Do you think that'll happen? Does that seem likely?
Matt, I know that sometimes you like to place bets on elections and things.
Yeah.
There is never going to be a more sure bet than this one. Donald Trump absolutely will not accept the election results if he loses. There's no way, there is a 100% chance that that is going to happen. So, call up your bookie, put some money down on that right now. You will absolutely get it back and then some. It is a sure thing.
Even if he wins, of course, yes. Of course, we understood that from 2016. He then sort of, he said the whole thing was rigged. And then it's like, you won, Mr.
Right.
Trump. He's like, okay, well, did I say rigged? I mean, well done on, a proper and fair election.
I think he's just been saying that the election is rigged for so long that, it's just kind of habit at this point. Like, if he did win, I do think he'd be like, oh, shit, it worked. Never mind. Forget everything I've been saying for the past 8 years.
It's like a nervous tick.
Yes, exactly. Now, of course, going into the election, let's just go ahead and ignore the polls because I hate them. They're too close, and that sucks, and I don't like it. So we're going to skip polls. The big news this week is that so both of the presidential candidates have given what we're calling their closing arguments. So this is kind of the last big speech of the campaign. So they both picked these kind of auspicious venues. Trump went to Madison Square Garden in New York City. Kamala Harris picked the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., which quite notably is the place where Trump gave his speech on January 6th. And then shortly after that, we had a little oopsie doodle at the Capitol, if you remember correctly. So auspicious location for her to have chosen.
Yeah, definitely remember that bit.
So Trump's strategy was to deliver a strong economic message. The economy, it's been tough. Here's what I'm going to do to make it better. Here's how I'm going to contrast with Bidenomics. And that's a great strategy, except he never bothered to execute it. So what he did instead was just like several hours of the most racist stuff you can imagine. He said, hey, 1 week till election day, all the Black and Latino voters have been kind of drifting my direction. What if I gave them a reason to go run screaming back towards Kamala, and that was what he did.
Wow.
Easy to see how you get there, right?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I saw the bit about the Puerto Rico joke and quite shocking.
Yes. Yes. There's that got a lot of attention. Of course, there was a watermelon joke that he made about a black person. He made a really gross uh, joke about Latinos invading the country, like in much the same way. How to say this in a euphemistic British way? That that a man's little soldiers invade an ovary. Anyways,
Wow.
it was gross. But there was lots to choose from in terms of crazy things said at this rally and crazy things that happened at this rally. So I thought I would give you a little pop quiz today. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a few things. You tell me which one of these things did not happen at this Trump rally. Okay.
That's a small
Number one.
field, I expect, but yeah, go ahead.
Uh, Number one, saying that Kamala is controlled by pimps. Hulk Hogan trying to tear off his shirt but being unable to. Calling Kamala Harris Samoan, Malaysian, and low IQ. Calling Kamala the Antichrist. Or saying that Palestinians are taught to kill Americans when they are toddlers. Which one of those things do you think did not happen at this Trump rally?
That's interesting because they all seem like stuff he'd say, or do, stuff that would happen there. Funny enough, sorry, I'm going to come to the answer in a moment, but funny enough, shortly before we came on air, I spotted, and I can't remember because sometimes my news feed comes up and then it disappears again. He said
Right.
something about along the lines of, "If I'd been re-elected, we'd have taken over Western Europe by now." Well, as someone that lives in Western Europe, Donald, please let me remind you, we're your friends. We're on your side. We're all together over here, okay? Ruski's bad. Ruski's, okay? Got it? Good.
Do you have flashcards that we could maybe use? Like, I don't know that the point's getting across.
All right. Sorry, could you run through the options again? I beg your pardon.
No worries. Okay. Number one, Kamala is controlled by pimps. Number two, Hulk Hogan not being able to tear off his shirt. Number three, saying that Kamala Harris is Samoan, Malaysian, and low IQ. Number four, calling Kamala the Antichrist. Or number five, saying that Palestinians are taught to kill Americans when they are toddlers.
Right. Okay. I thought about this. I'm going to say the Hulk Hogan thing. Or actually, maybe it isn't because maybe he's like 70 now or something. He struggles with it. I've got to say, when I'm that age and I've got them already, I'm definitely going to be wearing vests.
That is a good strategy. Yes, maybe something with just like a quick zipper makes it easier to kind of take off. No, Hulk Hogan did have trouble tearing off his shirt. And in fact, all of those things happened at this rally, every single one of them. My favorite, personally, is where Rudy Giuliani says that Palestinians are taught to kill Americans as toddlers, two-year-old Palestinians. And it's just like, you see that flag with all the stars and the stripes on it? Bad flag. Like, what are we doing here, Rudy? This is insane.
1+1 is kill the unbeliever. Kill them.
Yeah.
Kill.
Yes, apparently that's what's happening. Sounds extremely plausible when you think about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So yes, that was Trump's closing message. Screw anyone who isn't orange or a lighter shade, and I will crush my enemies with the military. Good stuff. It's all the stuff that voters care about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, when you said lighter, I thought you meant as in weight. Which case I would have to say that would be a bold pledge from Trump, wouldn't it?
Nope, it's his shade of bronzer, and anything paler than that, you're
Right.
going to be fine. Darker than that, you're in trouble. Yeah. So then there's Kamala Harris. She gave her closing argument and delivered a slightly different speech. Are you surprised that there was just that contrast there? It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yes. When I say yes, of course, I mean no, no, not at all. Um, and people will sort of make stuff no matter what. She's there talking about unity and keeping people together. And of course, all the right-wing press immediately go after the fact that Biden said um, Trump supporters were garbage, which they kind of are.
Well, Biden definitely shouldn't have said that. That
Yeah,
was that
yeah.
was not a good idea on his part.
Didn't Hillary Clinton say something similar? Didn't it reckon people cost her the election or something?
Yes, and they're trying to make that moment sort of happen again. She called people, way far over on the right deplorable, and there was this like basket of deplorables thing, like, oh, we're just a basket of deplorables, huh? Well, we'll show you. And you have to keep in mind at that point that the people who were supporting Trump really didn't know what was going to happen when he got into office, right? They were like,
Yeah.
I don't know, let's try it. Like, politics is broken, which, we can all agree on that. That's one thing we can all agree on from both sides of the Atlantic, right? No matter what party you're on, everybody's like, politics is broken. It's universally true. The answer is not to firebomb it, as we have found. Sometimes when you throw a firebomb into things, it explodes, and then you get shrapnel everywhere, and that's bad. But at the time, we didn't know exactly what he was going to do if he got into office. So that remark was a little more like, "Hey, now that we have seen who he is and how he governs and what he plans to do next time, truly, if you are still supporting this man, like, what the fuck are you doing?" And if it's because, eggs used to be cheaper and I liked that, it's like, okay, just gonna redirect you once again to the women that are dying from pregnancies. And that
Yeah.
number went way up. And the number of babies that are dying, way up. Personal freedom level, down. So, I'll take slightly more expensive eggs if I can decide what to do with mine.
Yeah. Yeah. Human eggs over chicken's eggs.
Exactly. It's an easy
Yeah.
choice when you think about it. Anyways, Kamala gave her speech, and it was a big, she was basically drawing the contrast between her and Trump. She was saying he wants to help rich people, I want to help the middle class. He wants to use the military to attack American citizens that don't agree with him, which I think we can all agree is a bit shocking. And I want to bring people together. He's crazy. I'm not crazy. It was interesting to see a politician who has a message and sticks to it instead of just insulting Latinos for 3 hours. I don't know how you decide between these two people, Matt. It's a tough decision.
Yeah, yeah. It's flip a coin, flip a coin, and
Exactly.
then go and vote for Harris for goodness sake. Anyway,
Yes.
I also saw that the Washington Post refused to endorse a candidate, which did seem to cause a lot of anger over there. Is that a big deal? Them doing that?
Uh, yes. Just to give you an idea of the scope of the backlash to that,
Mm.
so they've 10% of their subscribers have canceled their subscriptions, which that sounds bad
Yeah,
from a business perspective. You don't really want that. And so a lot of people are saying, well, what was the motivation behind this? Because they gave some horse shit about, like, we're going to be impartial this time. And it was like, really? This time? And I mean, this is not known for being, a super conservative newspaper. Like, they tend to endorse the left candidates, and so to not do so this year of all years, it's a bit
yeah,
strange. And the thinking behind this is, Jeff Bezos is the owner, and he is, of course, a billionaire. And there's kind of two possibilities there. Number one, Trump is planning to give tax breaks to people exactly like him. So maybe he's like, okay, I don't want to get on that guy's bad side in case he does win, because I want that sweet, sweet tax break, because everyone loves their tax breaks so much. Or maybe it's like, okay, Trump has said he's going to go after his enemies. A lot of them are in the press if he wins. And so we don't want, Panzer tanks showing up at our front door. So it's one of those two things, but both are pretty cowardly.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, the Washington Post is I have to say probably as people on the obviously in the US know, and imagine most British people around the world will know, is most famous, of course, for exposing the Watergate scandal. The
Sure.
reporters on that, and that
Yeah.
gave us the scandal adjacent word we've used ever since. We just attach gate to it, and it becomes a
Yes.
scandal. Uh, but do they normally endorse a candidate then, and is it normally a Democrat?
Yes and yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that tends to be how things go. So the fact that, obviously the stakes of this election are, to use another British euphemism, elevated, shall we say.
Yes. Yes.
And so to not do an endorsement this year, it's extremely cowardly.
Yeah.
There's not another choice, especially after the New York Times, who does have a mix of very conservative and very liberal, on their editorial board. And they try to do a lot of like both sidesing, and they try to
Mm.
be very fair in their coverage. The front page of the New York Times, the entire thing was, you know, Donald Trump is unfit to be president, vote for Kamala, like in
Wow.
giant, huge letters. So yeah, a different approach over at the Washington Post this year.
Wow. Wow. I keep coming back to this. Any system that has allowed basically a man that rejects democracy to run for president again, I just blows my mind. It just like, I am surprised, and this is by no means an attack in any way regard whatsoever, but I'm just surprised that, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, if we had the same in the UK, will we have all the checks and balances needed to ensure that this wouldn't happen? I'm not entirely sure. I think it's one of those where you kind of sit there and go, should we just check? Should we just, now's a good
Yeah,
time. Let's go have a look at that just to make sure if
let's
there's
check
some
on the
lunatic
checks.
come in. Yeah.
Yeah, let's double check the checks. Let's see how those and the balances are working. Yeah, that's a good idea to go and spruce those up if you haven't.
Yeah, just to make extra sure. It's strange because, of course, when you look at the democratic side of things, we have less democracy, you might say, than you do. We have a king, a constitutional monarch. We have
Right,
although he doesn't really do anything apart from reads out what the government tells him to, but we also have
right.
a House of Lords, unelected. The Houses of Parliament are really, although it is a House of Parliament that pass the laws, but they are the only ones that are elected. So it's strange. You're sitting there going, we've got less democracy, and yet we kind of don't want that democracy.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, the ladies at least have more rights than I do. So in that sense, maybe you have a little bit more democracy. So there's that.
There is
Um,
that.
so I do want to talk about the British side of things, mostly because
Okay.
my head is exploding trying to keep thinking about the American side of things. But I do want to tell people that on election night, we will be live streaming. We're going to be stress eating some chocolate and drinking some gin, and we will be in a blanket fort, just hunkering down, watching MSNBC and waiting for any sliver of good news to come in. So if anyone out there would like to join us, head on over to the live tab of our channel, and you can see where that will be and join us on election night. It will be wild.
Yeah, I mean, count me in for a tuna, definitely. Yeah, brilliant. That sounds fantastic. Will that be you and Austin?
Yes, yes, we will.
And I
We will be
imagine,
having fun together, or trying to.
and hopefully all that sugary food will keep you sparked up, right?
Hopefully so. Hopefully so. That it's either going to be that or white hot rage. So I'm rooting for the chocolate. Anyways, Matt, let's head on over to your side of the pond. I want to hear about what's going on over there. I heard that Sir Keir has experienced a rather precipitous drop in approval ratings. So
Yeah.
did he get this Tony Hinchcliffe guy to speak on his behalf or something? Like, what's happening there?
It's kind of crazy. I mean, you would think it wouldn't have made a great deal of difference. See, what's happened is Starmer's approval ratings have dropped faster than an adventure-seeking concrete block that's forgotten to pack its parachute. But and yeah, I mean, he's not helped himself, right? The backlash from cutting a lot of pensioners' winter fuel payments is still ongoing, and various
Right.
other things. And obviously, we had the riots, and they were dealt with quickly, but people aren't entirely happy with the fact that were they dealt with fairly, that sort of thing. But a lot of this, I feel a lot of this is just starting to become ridiculous now. A lot of it's coming from tax dodging newspaper owners who basically don't want to pay tax. So they start laying into it, much in a Jeff Bezos manner, shall we say.
Right.
Um, Although Jeff Bezos at least has stepped out the ring rather than stepped in the ring. There we go.
Yeah.
They start laying on into him about things like going to see Taylor Swift 3 times, when the tickets were for free, and taking down pictures of Margaret Thatcher in at number 10. I mean, the whole thing, as I say, just getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
Or to put it another way, and you and our American audience might appreciate this, Andrea. He's too left wing for the press and too right wing for large parts of the Labour Party. Still, he's got a huge majority and has only just got the job. I mean, give him time, peeps. Give him a bit of time, right?
Well, now hang on, Matt. Hang on. To be fair, he has been in office over twice as long as Liz Truss, and he still hasn't nuked the economy
Oh,
into oblivion. Like, what are you waiting for, you coward? Come on, let's go. It's
yes,
time to
yes.
get to
And
work.
speaking of which, it's the budget today.
Oh,
Yeah. It's Labour's first budget in 14 years, and
okay.
it's first one since 2010. And I've been seeing there's lots of various people coming on to talk about the budget, including one Liz Truss, saying about what
Oh,
a bad budget it was. And you sit there and think, going,
and she
"That's
would
what I want to
know.
hear." Yes, yes, that's
Yes.
good. That's good. If you think it's a
Do
bad
the
budget,
opposite
then
of whatever Liz Truss says. Always a good idea.
yeah, always works. The other interesting thing is that the Chancellor is a woman called Rachel Reeves.
Hmm.
Now, something you may not be aware of is she's the first Chancellor, first female Chancellor, I beg your pardon, since the office was actually opened up some
Oh,
over 8 centuries ago.
wow.
Yeah. Anyway, let's
Real.
move on to the budget itself, shall we? It's happened about an hour ago, so I'm still taking just sifting through the headlines, but a lot of it we kind of all knew already because it's been leaked out at various points. The big headline is a rise in national insurance contributions made by employers and not employees. There was this whole ridiculous argument about working people because Labour in their manifesto turned around and said, we won't raise taxes for working people. Everybody
Hmm.
said, well, what's a working people? Am I working people? Is the Prime Minister a working people? They kind of meant, people that go out and sort of do, I guess, general labour, if you like.
Okay.
Anyway, they've raised the national insurance contributions from 1.2 to 15%. That's quite a bit, but it's going
Wow.
to generate about 25 billion pounds.
Okay.
And the biggest cheer came from the MPs when they said there would be a cut in duty on alcohol. So it's good to know where their priorities lie, right?
Well, it's nice to have the extra insurance money for health insurance. When the cirrhosis flares up, you'll be ready to go, right?
Well, funny enough, there used to be a tradition that when the Chancellor deliver the budget, they would be given a tipple of their choice to enjoy. And looking at some of
Huh.
our budgets in recent years, that would explain so much. It really
Yeah.
would.
Yes, I believe Liz Truss had several beverages when she came up with that budget, which doesn't doesn't smack of sobriety.
Yeah, well, speaking of female leaders, if you like,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and those that are doing all right and those aren't doing so quite so well. The Conservative Party are going to announce their leader on Saturday. I've got to say, I've enjoyed this leadership election so much.
Hmm.
Just absolutely loved it. They've been laying into each other something chronic, and it's just a joy to see because essentially you're now down to two, right? Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick. You've been down to two for a while, and Kemi
Yeah.
Badenoch has been gaslighting Robert Jenrick, which normally would upset me. But because it's Robert Jenrick, a man known for gaslighting people all over the place, and watching him just lose his shit over the fact that he's getting gaslit is just hilarious. I'm
I love it.
absolutely with it. For instance, she'll turn around and say things like, people are fed up with the party fighting. and there's only one unity candidate, and you sit there and go, well, hang on a minute, you're calling yourself the unity candidate. You're obviously saying he isn't. She makes all these digs about the fact that he got fired. He got donors from some dodgy source and things like that, and then turning around saying, but we've had enough of the fighting. I shall be disappointed when it comes to a finish. But I did just want to point out that if she does win, and everything actually points to the fact that she will,
Hmm.
it will mean out of the last 5 leaders the Tories have had, 3 have been women. So fingers crossed as well that that's a sign of things to come.
Yes. However, I'm all for girl power, but I think maybe, ladies, we wield that power just a little bit more responsibly next time. Just something to try. Just a little suggestion from me.
Absolutely.
Now, Matt, before we wrap up, I thought it would be fun to make your jaw drop in horror. I'm gonna, well, actually, first, let me just let you guess. Do you want to take a guess at how much money has been spent on our election this year? And if you don't just want to pluck a number out of thin air, I can give you a multiple choice. We can, make this back like in school.
Let me try a couple of things first, which is
Okay.
interestingly, we had a look at the GDP of the UK, something like
Hmm.
one point, just over $1 trillion, trillion pounds.
Okay.
Um, Not too far off dollars, I'd imagine. And so imagine under 1.5 trillion sort of dollars. But we also have rules over here where you can only spend so much.
Mm.
I'm assuming those aren't relevant in America.
Nah, we don't have rules like that. That's not a thing.
You have freedom to spend ridiculous amounts of stuff on
So
balloons
much
and
freedom.
yeah, celebrities and flyovers
Yeah.
and God knows what else. Okay, so the figure. Let me try something. Um,
Okay.
are we going individually here? Are we going as one group? So Democrats and Republicans.
Just the amount of money that has been spent on the entire election, like not just the presidential race, but like across, up and down the ballot, all over how much has been spent on this election this year.
So here goes. And I think actually this is a reasonable amount. Obviously it's not, but I think it's a point at which I would make a guess. $100 billion. Actually, that's ridiculous.
100.
What am I talking about? Let me try that again. I'm going to go
Okay.
for $1 billion. All right.
More.
Okay. $10 billion.
Still more.
Was I close when I said 100 billion?
No, that's high.
25 billion?
It's actually just about $16 billion. I'm
Oh,
curious. Do you have any idea how much money was spent on the British election this year? I don't know the answer to that. I assume it's less.
yeah, yeah, yeah. In a weird sort of way, I think if that became known that a certain party had spent X billions of pounds on something, I think that would ruin their chances of getting elected because people are like, wait a minute, you did what with the money? You threw a big party. What's the matter with you? How many
Right.
hospitals could we run with that? I know it's in the millions. I think I remember seeing a figure saying something like 32 million. Uh,
That is
makes it
adorable.
making yours 500 times higher than ours. Wow.
Just a little bit, yes.
Yeah.
So we do orders of magnitude difference over here in terms of our political fundraising. And you know what I think is interesting is we have problems in our country, as you do in yours. There
Hmm.
are people who are hungry. Schools are underfunded, and the conservatives, well, the fiscal conservatives, not the MAGA conservatives, different groups of people, but the old-fashioned fiscal conservatives are always like, how are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for this? And I think it's very clear that when we want to, we can make money appear out of thin
Yeah.
fucking air and
Yeah.
spend it on whatever we want. So I don't see why anyone should ever have to be poor or hungry or go without if we can gin up billions of dollars to put towards political ads. seems like all of our problems are very solvable.
Yeah. I'm always confused, well, not a little bit, loads by this and the whole rally thing. And again, we have rallies over here, we have hustings and things like that. Um, but I am confused by the American obsession with rallies because it's almost like, are there really Americans sitting there going, there's a what next week? A what? No, nobody told me. Oh, I expected, unless the circus comes to town, you're unclear about which clown to vote for, right? It just seems very odd that you need the rally, which always gets obviously filled out with people that support you anyway, which
Right.
again, wasted money. But maybe I'm
Yes.
looking at it too literally. Maybe it's more like a pop star or a rock star. You do touring, and you sort of, that's it, same equivalence, maybe.
Well, I will say this: the parties are very different about the rallies. So,
Mm.
Donald Trump, the past 4 years that he has not been the president, has been having rallies on a regular basis
Yeah.
because he just likes it when people clap for him, and so he's like, let's. I want. People haven't clapped for me in a while. I want to be clapped for. Get something together. I need a big group of people to clap for me.
Does he have clap signs? Because there's plenty of times where he goes on that rambling thing. You can see people, and then he stopped. Oh, wait a minute. Should we be cheering that, booing that? I'm not sure. Entirely sure. I wasn't paying a whole heap of attention. Yeah. Mm.
Well, there's lots of stories that people keep leaving his rallies early, which does not happen at a Kamala Harris rally generally. People show up, they stay because she doesn't ramble on for an hour and a half. She comes in, delivers the message,
Yeah.
thumbs up, cheer, balloon drop, gets the hell out of there, and moves on to the next thing. It's like you gotta be efficient. He will just get up there, and after the clapping, he'll just talk for a long time, and he always says the same thing, and it's barely comprehensible at this point. So people and lately there's been a lot of reports that he's showing up really late to rallies. So in fact, um, the I don't think it was the Madison Square Garden rally. I think it was another one right before that. Oh, it was in Pennsylvania. So rally in a swing state, Pennsylvania, where he's trying to get as many votes as possible because it's like the most important state in the election, basically.
Yeah.
And he shows up to his rally 3 hours late because he
Wow.
was doing a podcast with Joe Rogan.
That's just that's just wow. Mind you, having said that, that's probably a good sign. I don't know. You remember Rishi Sunak did the same sort of thing. He left a D-Day celebration, a
Yes,
Remembrance Day, yes, to come
that's
back
right.
to do an ITV television interview.
Right.
But they organised the date for the interview. That's the sort of mad thing about that. It's not like ITV said, well, if he doesn't come back on that day, screw him. You know what I mean? So they're like, oh,
Exactly.
it's the only day we've got free. And then obviously, oh, crap, how fast can we get back from France? Yeah. Um, I want to ask actually, because we both, in fact, we both could have had an election within a month of each other if Conservative had stuck with original thing of going in October.
Right.
Or late September. But we've both had an election, obviously, this year. I wanted to talk about the voting process, if that's all right.
Sure.
A little bit about what it's like over here in the UK, and then I imagine you can, well, if that's all right, you can talk about the American way of doing things.
Sure.
We so the last couple of times since COVID, in fact, I haven't changed yet. I've been a postal voter, but before
Hmm.
then, I was a walk-in voter. Basically, you go in, you show your ID, they have a whole list there with your name on, they cross it out, they hand you a slip of paper, you go into a booth. No cameras or anything like that are allowed in there. Go in the booth, you shut the curtain, and you put your X on the thing, and then you go back out, shove it in the box, and on your way.
Hmm.
What's the American? Because I'm trying to get my head around the machine thing.
Yeah. So first of all, I think I'm curious to hear if it's like this over there, but over here, every state gets to make their own rules. So there's no like federal, there are some federal rules that are like you can't do these few things, but states have a lot of control over how the voting process is going to work. And it is different in literally every single state, and in some cases, from city to city. So, like,
Wow.
in Texas, for example, this year in San Antonio, they decided they were going to send out a bunch of ballots, mail-in ballots, just kind of to everybody. And so if you wanted to use those ballots, you could, or you could go and vote in person. But the Attorney General of Texas, who is a real slimeball, said, no, 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 you can't do that. You can't make it easier for people to vote because then we might have voter fraud. We might have immigrants who are voting. And it's like, well, no, honey, here's how it works. They send in the ballot and then you check it,
Yeah.
right? To make sure that this person is allowed to vote. And if so, then you accept it. And if not, you reject it. There's a checking process that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
So there's no need to prevent people from, sending out these ballots. But anyway, that was just something that one city in Texas was doing that they got their hands slapped for. So
Is there though? Well, I suppose there is, isn't there? Because we're hearing a lot with the Labour Party getting involved for all the wrong reasons with this. What do they call the Federal Election Commission?
yes, there is a federal election commission that does try to say things like you can't do any electioneering like 100 feet from the actual polling place. So you have to be a certain amount away from the front door before you can like wear a shirt or hold a sign or
Yeah.
try to talk to people and influence their vote in any sort of way. So there's this halo of protection where people have to leave you alone the closer you get to the voting booth. Um, but the way that it works, so for me this year, I voted at a local church, and it's a little bit weird that we have a polling location at a church. Not very separation of church and statey, but there we go.
To be fair, we have the same. We have the same thing. The last time I voted was in a church. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So there was about an hour and 15-minute line because I went on the first day because I was extremely motivated, and
Yeah.
I was happy that there was a long line. That meant that everybody was motivated too, and I think that's good. What happens is a very similar process. You give them your ID, and then they print out the first part of a ballot, so it's got your information at the top, but like encoded, so they there's supposed to be some privacy there so they can check later to see, okay, this vote has already been counted, so let's not count it again, that kind of thing.
Like a barcode.
Yes, yes, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So you get to the machine, there's no curtain, there's just these little kind of dividers, so if you wanted to peek over at the next person you probably could, but you know most people don't do
Really?
that. Yeah, there's no curtain. It's just these little kind of cardboard things on the sides, and
Push
you
that
feed
button. Yeah.
exactly. No electioneering next to the voting machines. Remember, so you feed your ballot card into the machine, and it sucks it in, and then it has all the candidates, and it's a touch screen thing, and so you just and then you go to the next page and you keep touching until you filled it all out, and then you can review it all. And then at
Mm.
the end, it will barcode print those choices onto your ballot. And then you take it and then you go put it in a different machine. That's the ballot sucker upper, I think is the technical term
Right.
for it. And yeah, that's how the voting machine thing kind of works
Wow.
here in Texas. So but other places they don't have the machines. Some people have the written ballots. All the ballots look different. There's no standards. There's no, wherever you go, it's going to be different. And
Wow.
I'm curious, in Britain, is it like that or is it the same everywhere you go?
Well, it's been the same everywhere I've been. I'm now wondering whether it is the same. No, it is the same. It's the same across we have our own electoral body, who, funny enough, have had a lot of powers being taken off them from Boris Johnson's time in government. I say
Hmm.
funny enough, not funny at all, in fact, rather concerning for those of us that believe in democracy. But yes, essentially, it's the same in each one. And in fact, the only time I've never queued to vote. I tend to
Really?
go during the day, which is always going to be quieter anyway. The only time I've ever heard where there's been an issue with people queuing and things was, um, I can't even remember when it was, back in the early 2000s, I think, and there was a Britain, forgive me for this. I'm going to describe it as a northern town because I can't remember the name of the place. I think it was Cheshire, somewhere like Cheshire. And basically, what happened was because people were working so late, they the ballots are open to something like 10:30, and they could only get to then at that point, and they all started queuing up. But the ballots were in, ready to close and stuff, and they were like, "You can't close. We haven't voted yet."
Right.
And I'm trying to remember what they did with reference to that. I think they basically kept the ballots open and stuff. I had to ask for sort of special dispensation, I would imagine, kept the election spots open in order for people to get their chance to vote. But yes, across the board, no matter where you are, voting is the same. It's same rules. The only difference being, in fact, since I moved to London, I have more people to vote for because obviously I've got the mayor, I've got the General Assembly, I beg your pardon, on the London Council, and my MP, and so you're voting for a few people at the same time, which I know you doing the same thing in. Is it in the election, or is it in the midterms, or is it both?
It's both. It's both.
Okay.
So usually in the midterms, since you don't have the presidential race,
Mm,
there's kind of fewer people to vote for, and then in the years between the midterms and the presidential election, there's even fewer things usually
mm.
to vote for. But I have to say, Matt, hearing that you guys don't queue to vote, I'm a little bit sad for you because I know how much you guys love to queue.
It's disappointing, certainly, and then complain about the queue.
Yes, yes, that's the best part. You guys should come over here and come vote for us. We'll show you a lovely queuing time. You'll love it.
Absolutely, and we can queue with the best of them.
That's right. That's right. You guys invented queuing. All right, guys, that is all that we have time for this week. But Matt and I will be back next week. Matt, I assume, will be well rested and dashing as ever. And don't be alarmed if I have a busted lip and a fire burning behind me. That's just how America is now. In the meantime, for more from Matt, head over to @TheInterestingTimes UK, and please do join us this Friday for our regular weekly show, as well as our election night live stream next Tuesday. Go to the live tab on the channel to grab that link. I will be back here with Matt next week, right after election night, probably not knowing anything, and we will just comfort each other until we know, and that's what we'll do.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Take care.
Bye bye.
Good luck. Bye bye.
Goodbye.